Good evening, everybody. It's Bobby Harvey here on the platform in downtown Ottumwa, Iowa. We're getting ready for another live stream of Amtrak's westbound California Zephyr as it makes its station stop here in Ottumwa this evening. A beautiful evening, June 7, 2025, the first Saturday in June. And it's been a few weeks since I've done one of these live streams. My wife and I have been very busy, so I'll give you guys a little update in that regards as the evening rolls along. We'll let you guys all trickle in first. I'll do the little introduction for the video. It is a very nice evening here in Ottumwa. The temperature is in the low to mid 70s. It's kind of rainy at the beginning of the day, but as you can see, it is cleared off and there's little to no wind. It is absolutely gorgeous out here right now. And great puffy clouds in the sky and sunshine. Very nice evening here in Ottumwa. So once again, we are back here on the platform. First time in 3 weeks, I think. Here at my traditional spot on the platform, I try and pick the same spot every time so we get a kind of consistent look at the train as it comes in and departs. It's kind of neat to be in the same spot and see all of the, differences in the train consist and stuff like that. I see it all from the same spot. Now, eventually, as I continue to do these, I will probably change things up a little bit. But why mess with success? Still got some of you guys rolling in. Have some of you leaving comments already, so we'll go ahead and greet you guys. James is here from Ohio. Once again, welcome. Brian's here. And Matthew Bernstein is here. He asks when Amtrak is coming in. They were running pretty well on time west of Burlington, so I didn't check them again after that, but I assume that they were running pretty well on time past Mount Pleasant. So we started this about, it's 6:40 right now, so the train will probably be getting here, if they're running on time, it'll probably be getting here within probably the next few minutes, maybe a little later. The departure time, the scheduled departure time here in Ottumwa is 6:57 p.m. And usually, if they're running on time, they will be here a little earlier than that. Sometimes, if they're doing really good, you might see them come in a little after 6:30. There's just that much padding in the schedule. But that doesn't happen very much. Usually they'll meet some freight trains along the way. There might be some reason that they have to slow down. So a lot of times, if they're running right on time, it won't be much earlier than, say, maybe 10 minutes before the scheduled arrival time. But obviously, they purposefully put extra time in the schedule because it only takes about probably less than 40 minutes or so to get between here and Mount Pleasant and vice versa on the railroad. So the scheduled departure time in Mount Pleasant is around 6 o'clock. So that would mean that Amtrak would be rolling in here if there isn't anything in their way from here to Ottumwa. They'd be rolling in here probably about 6:40 or so. But they put that extra padding in, so the train could get in behind freight trains. They could have a slow order, some sort of speed restriction they have to slow down for. They put padding in the schedule to allow for that so that the train can still arrive on time to the stations along the way. Obviously, you don't want too much padding in the schedule, though, because, then you're not going to be moving along as quickly as you should be. So I'm sure it's very difficult to write these schedules out when you really think about it, because you got to think of all the variables that might happen. I mean, obviously, you don't want there to be too much padding in the schedule. You want the train to, zip along as quickly as it can. On the other hand, you don't want to be consistently late at all your stops either. So it has to be a realistic, balance between a tight schedule, but also some padding as well. When you're going across the country, like an Amtrak train, like a long distance train such as the Zephyr, you have to allow for quite a bit more padding than you would a shorter corridor train. Like around here, the nearest corridor trains we have on Amtrak is some of the Illinois trains, like the Illinois Zephyr, Carl Sandburg, Lincoln Service, Missouri River Runner, trains like that. They don't have as much padding in their schedules because they don't travel as big distances. So there's not as much, necessity for a lot of padding because there's not as much room for error. There's not as much time to lose, if you will. So last time I checked, the train was running pretty well on time, so we should be expecting them here shortly. But some of the comments here, Brian said that according to the real-time tracker, 4 minutes down. So they're estimating that the train will depart here at about 7 o'clock. Then he says 4 minutes late at Mount Pleasant. So yeah, they could make up that time so they can leave here on time. They might not, but 4 minutes is nothing. I mean, they could easily make up that time. If not between Mount Pleasant and Ottumwa, points west. If they don't fall any further behind, they could easily make that up. Now, so what happens when a train is running on time or early? If they don't have to, in a sense, use all the padding in the schedule, what happens when that train comes in to Ottumwa, say, 15, 20 minutes early? What do? Well, they just stay in the station for that 15, 20 minutes until it is the scheduled departure time. They can't leave any earlier than the scheduled departure time. Obviously, if there's any latecomers, some passengers that might have arrived late, we have to make sure that they have a chance to get on the train. So they can't leave before the scheduled timetable time. I'm sure that also has something to do with, the time slots that they get on the railroads too. The dispatchers want to know that, Amtrak's going to be departing at that time or later, so they can, plan accordingly and sideline some of the freight trains along the way if they have to. So the crew is starting to walk down the platform here. See one of the conductors. And the train also gets a change of engineers here in Ottumwa. They usually come out a little later. So that probably means that Amtrak is getting fairly close. We don't have anything to our west coming east so far. Yeah, we got 24 you guys watching right now, so just like on the really popular rail cams, like the ones in Galesburg and other places, the viewership goes up a lot when Amtrak is getting close. I'm trying to think of what my record is for these live streams. I think it's somewhere around 40 people at the same time in some of these live streams. Now, Matthew is still watching. He just asked the question, how often do they change crews on this train? Yeah, that's a good question that I always ask too, that I always wonder about too on different Amtrak trains. It's really interesting too to see or learn about the different places where they change crews. We'll talk about that as we go along here. I think the train might be getting close. So I'll start to talk about it, but if Amtrak starts rolling in, we'll get back to it after its departure. The first crew change from Chicago on the westbound Zephyr, which is what we're seeing here momentarily, is here, Ottumwa. That's where the first crew change happens, a change of conductors and engineers. And then the new crew, Dakota's here. Welcome, Dakota. Yeah, he says, sorry I'm late. Well, that's okay. We're just getting started here tonight. Anyways, this is the first crew change point past Chicago. The train begins in Chicago. It originates there. This is the first crew change point. The next one is Lincoln, Nebraska. That's late at night, sometimes early in the morning the following day. And then the next one after that, and I don't quite know for sure if they take it all the way to Denver after that, or if there's another crew change somewhere in there between there and Denver. There might be, there might not be. I'll have to check on that. But then Denver, obviously, is a very big crew change point and a service stop for the train. Then after that, the crew from Denver takes the train all the way to Grand Junction, Colorado, all the way across all of the mountain pass of the Rocky Mountains. Very scenic section of track. And past Grand Junction, I'm pretty sure the next crew change point is Salt Lake City and a service stop for the train. Then after that, I'm not quite sure again. I don't know if they change between Salt Lake City and Reno. There might be one crew change point in there somewhere, but I'm not sure. But I do know that Reno is another definite crew change point. And then that crew from Reno, I'm pretty sure, it's been a while since I've ridden the Zephyr. It's been about 6 years since I've ridden the Zephyr all the way to California, to the San Francisco area. But I'm pretty sure the crews that get on the train in Reno to take the train west, they go the rest of the way to Emeryville, which is the terminus, the western terminus of the westbound California Zephyr. Of course, Emeryville, California is literally right across the bay from San Francisco. I suppose I probably should turn my scanner on to see what's going on in the railroad world. Had it off this whole time. Yeah, it's very interesting to learn about all of the different crew change points for the trains. Now, it wasn't until several years ago that the engineer and conductor crew changes in Ottumwa were different. Only engineers changed in Ottumwa. Conductors changed in Omaha. And that kind of got restructured so that they could consistently change at the same time, engineers and conductors here in Ottumwa, and then engineers and conductors at Lincoln. But it used to be the conductor who got on in Ottumwa, or excuse me, in Chicago, they would go all the way to Omaha before they changed out. And that got changed to kind of line up with the engineer districts. Well, the train should be getting fairly close, I would think. I'm pretty sure that that is our engineer on the platform there talking to the conductor. Can't really see the conductor. He's kind of behind the pole there on the platform canopy, but pretty sure that's our engineer for the train that's going to be getting on here momentarily. It is a very nice night out here tonight, folks.
BNSF 8386 West Oak.
BNSF dispatcher's talking to a westbound freight.
Yes, question for you because I really don't want to stop y'all again. Y'all have any trouble going main track 2 from 2833 up to Maxon? Over. Okay, I figured so, but it always makes me feel better if y'all tell me you will be, so. Alright, I'm gonna let the 664 out. Could you possibly do me just a favor whenever you go by that sub-track there off main track 2 near Ottumwa? Will you tell me if there's anything in that area, in those tracks? I was looking to pick up a motor there, but as far as I know, there's not one there.
This is an interesting conversation.
Should be somewhere off main 2, if you don't mind. Just let me know if you see anything in that area. I appreciate it. It's up to you somewhere.
Okay, so they are talking to a westbound BNSF freight, and the dispatcher is going to attempt to run them on main 2. So I wonder if that train, I actually think that train might be coming through now. Well, no, maybe not. This might be Amtrak. Yep, it is. So we'll get back to that conversation after Amtrak comes through. We'll get back to all you guys' questions and comments and chat with you guys. In the meantime, here comes our train of the day. Amtrak's California Zephyr, rolling in. to Ottumwa. The train has arrived. Now, for some of you longtime viewers, and I've just noticed this now too, standing on the platform here in Ottumwa, pretty much in the exact same spot, you also notice that the train, the engineer, will actually spot the train about in the same spot every time. Today, you might notice something a little different. Usually, the second locomotive is right next to us when they stop. Today, it's significantly past us, and the baggage car is next to us instead. And there's a reason for that, and this is a very happy report. There are 3 coaches. There's an extra coach on this train. There have been only 2 Superliner coaches at the end of the train for the longest amount of time. This train, there's 3. So this is essentially a full California Zephyr consist that you would see at most times before COVID. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, and after that, they kind of went down to just 2 coaches regularly. And now, at least for the summer, the 3rd coach is back. So that's why they stopped the train further down, so they could spot that coach on the platform. It's really happy news that Amtrak's rolled enough cars, refurbished enough cars out of Beech Grove to be able to put that coach back on this train. And hopefully it stays after the summer. Oh, sorry about that. What the? Hey, there was a guy stopped on the tracks down there. Not wise. Now, something else interesting that you might notice that doesn't happen as much on this train anymore is that the second locomotive is back-to-back with the lead locomotive. It's a little more aesthetically pleasing. It just looks better to have the second engine flip backwards. But you don't really see that much on the Zephyr anymore. Usually they're back to front. They're both facing the same direction. It's a lot of people refer to that as elephant style. Just like elephants parading behind each other at a circus. But it used to be the second engine was always flipped backwards like this. And there are advantages to facing the engines the same way or having the second engine flip the other way. Now, one major advantage of this is, let's say something happens along the line and they have to turn the train around and go back. Well, all they have to do is run the engines around the train and they're good to go. But let's say something happens to the lead locomotive and they have to swap engines around and have the trailing engine lead instead. Well, it's going to be a little more complicated to do that when your second engine is faced the other way. It's easier to do something like that if both engines are faced the same way. So there's advantages and disadvantages to doing that. Me personally, I just think it looks better when engines are back to back like this. So the train has received a change of engineers. The conductor just announced over the radio that they have good markers. And off we go. They are not messing around tonight. As you might have heard, one of the conductors yell, "All aboard," down on the platform to the passengers. Now the all aboard call and the engineer blowing the whistle pretty much means the same thing. This is a fresh air stop for the train, and passengers riding on the train can get off and stretch their legs. Obviously, when the conductor calls all aboard and the engineer blows the whistle, it's time to get back on and head out of town. They are working fast tonight. Off they go. Nice to see a standard consist on the train tonight as they pull out of the station, do their running brake test. Transition sleeper followed by 2 sleeping cars. There's our dining car. There's the sightseer lounge car. And here come our coaches, all 3 of them. The first 2 are standard coaches. And then the last one is your coach baggage car. Baggage area on the bottom. Really nice to see a full consist on this train again. Leaving on a clear, off they go. Only a couple minutes late is not bad. They will definitely, if they don't run into anything else along the way, they will definitely make up that time that they lost in between Mount Pleasant and here. Only running about 2 minutes late now. Their next stop is Osceola, about an hour from now. And after that, Creston, then Omaha, Lincoln, and all points west. That train will arrive in Emeryville, California, a little under 2 days from now. That'd be Monday afternoon next week. It's also nice to see the train come in and do their station work efficiently and get out of town. And that stop, especially for those of you that have been watching these streams, that stop is not normally that quick. That was like, what, 5 minutes? I mean, a lot of times it's 10 minutes or more, but they were probably just trying to make up some time. And it's always nice when they change engineers and the PTC loads properly in the engine fast enough. And that's another thing that kind of delays trains sometimes. Every time they change engineers, they have to reinitialize the positive train control computer system in the locomotive. And as with all computers, sometimes it loads quickly, sometimes it takes its time, sometimes it doesn't load at all. So it must have loaded pretty quick tonight for them to be able to get in and out that quickly. Okay, let's listen to what the dispatcher has to say. Somebody toned him up. And then we'll talk about our potential next trains that we've got coming in. As Amtrak gets out of town.
Not moving up here.
Yeah, that's the CPKC. Something going on that one. Canadian Kevin is here. Welcome. For those of you just joining us, Amtrak just left the station. I'll go ahead and back up the stream and watch it come in and out. And stick around, though, because I'm pretty sure we've got at least one, maybe two more trains on their way. So we'll go ahead and pan the camera back around to face the station.
Ottumwa entering Ottumwa radio, over. Amtrak 76 West to dispatcher. We'd like to release track warrant number 730-41. 41, over. 76 West reports clear limits of track warrant number 730-41 between CTC 2502 and CTC Ottumwa. Limits reported clear at 1903-1903, over. AMTK 76 West reporting clear on track warrant number 730-41 between CTC CP 2502 and CTC Ottumwa at 1903-1903. Is that correct, over? After briefing, conductor and engineer agree that is correct. Time tonight, 53 and 59.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard the...
All correct on the repeat. Times at Ottumwa 1853, 1859. Correct, over?
Yep.
That is also correct. Thank you very much. You have a good evening, over. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good rest of your trip, and let me know if you need anything. Talk to you next time. BNSF tomorrow.
Yep, so their times were 53 and 59, 6 minutes they were in the station. That's not very long, but when you drop and go, kind of what they just did, that's another way you can make up time if you're behind schedule, is to make faster station stops. Now, some stops along the California Zephyr line are service stops, and those are much longer stops than the one here in Ottumwa. This one actually is a fairly long stop for your normal station, which just has like a departure time, and that's it. I think a lot of times they have like 5 or 6 minutes factored into the arrival time into Ottumwa. But some of the service stops like Omaha, Salt Lake City, Denver, at those stations, if you're running behind, so there is usually like 45 minutes or so of time factored into those service stops. If you're running behind schedule and you're able to do your work quickly, you can make up a significant amount of time in those service stops. Because a lot of times you don't need that much time for a service stop if you've got all your ducks in a row. So Amtrak just left the station a few minutes ago, but there are a couple of other trains that I've heard on the radio that are probably on their way within the next 15-20 minutes or so. The first one that I heard on the radio, the dispatcher was talking about, is a westbound BNSF freight train that they were going to run on Main 2, which is the track farthest away from us in this scene. Main 1 is the closest. They were asking the crew if they would be okay running on Main 2 around Maxon, which is near Albia. So I don't know if they're going to be running on Main 2 now or if they'll be running on Main 2 later once they get down there. We'll have to see. Look back at some of you guys' comments. I think some of you guys were tracking the next train. Yeah, A train said that the westbound mixed freight should be following 5, which of course that's the westbound Zephyr that we just saw. And he thinks it might be the DMO train. That would be interesting if it was. Yep. A train also says that they, at Amtrak, had to take the crossover east of Fairfield to get in front of the DMO. So I don't know how far away that train is, but I'll look at the signals to our west, and that'll give us a decent idea of when the train might be rolling through. And I just looked at it. It is at approach, which is a solid yellow aspect. That means the next signal is red, but that also means that the dispatcher has lined another train through. So that train is indeed following Amtrak on Main 1 and will cross over to the other track later on. But in that conversation, the dispatcher was also talking about the 664 train, which is the local train out of Eddyville that we saw in the last stream that I did a few weeks ago. I think that was last time. Pretty sure it was. So I don't know whether they will send that train out soon or if they'll wait until this train is by. But there is another crossover west of Ottumwa, not too far away, that this train might be able to switch over to Main 2 from that point. I think that's actually what the dispatcher was talking about, because he was mentioning a control point. And I think it was like 283 something, which that would be before 2888, which is the crossover near Chillicothe, which is further west from here. That crossover is only about 3 miles west of here. So that's probably what they're doing. They're probably running this next train over on that track. And then once Amtrak goes by, the switch to Cargill, what the local train comes out on, they'll send the local out on Main 1. And this train will have already switched over to Main 2. So once it goes by, then they will continue east on Main 1 and then cross over at the new crossover east of the station from Main 1 to 2 and do their work in the Ottumwa yard. Now, the dispatcher was also talking about there might be a locomotive in the yard for the local to pick up, but he doesn't know whether there is one there or not. And so he asked the DMO crew to be on the lookout for an engine and to let him know so that he could relay the message to the local crew to let them know if they need to pick it up or if they don't. Sounds to me like it might be on their work order to pick it up, but it may not actually be there, which, you know, that type of thing happens on the railroad from time to time. And I wonder if that's their only work in Ottumwa tonight, and if it's not there, that they'll just keep on going. The 664 train serves the small Ottumwa yard, and it's a lot smaller than it used to be on the BNSF. It's only about 3 or 4 tracks, and it is actually switched out by the Burlington Junction Railway. They have a little GP7 locomotive down there in the yard, and they do all of the switching of the industries in Ottumwa on the BNSF, which there aren't many. In fact, I'm thinking there's only 3. JBS, which is the biggest one, it's the meat packing facility here in town, a pork facility. Oh, sorry about that. And then there's Lineage, which is another meat packing facility, which I think they also process pork products. And then there is a scrap yard that also gets the occasional load, and their siding is off of Main 1. I think they might actually be served by the westbound local train 663 most of the time. But I have never, I've seen them do a pickup or drop off there, but I haven't gotten video of it. It doesn't happen very much, but they do receive some or ship out some scrap metal from there. And those are the only 3 Ottumwa industries that are served by the railroad from BNSF. And really, I think those are the only industries as a whole that are served by, well, no, that's not true. The CPKC has, what is it called? Questliner. It's a trucking company. They, I think they ship out like food grade, like oils and stuff like that And some of that comes in by rail, and then they transload it off of the trucks and then truck it the rest of the way to the destinations. And that is served by the CPKC. But that's the only other Ottumwa industry that is served by the railroad. So there's 4, which is kind of amazing for a town this size to only have 2 rail lines going through it, but there's only 4 online businesses, if you will, that are served by the railroad. Everything else just rolls through town, going to different places. But you also have Amtrak. So Ottumwa has a passenger depot. So I guess that would be 5 things that go out from Ottumwa by rail. 4 freight and 1 passenger. Which really, in Iowa, it's not that bad to have that much, business on the railroad. To put it in perspective, though, you have a smaller town like Eddyville, for example, which has much more heavy industry. They have Cargill. They also have a company called Ajinomoto. They both make food products, and they have several different types of freight that go out. Cargill, a lot of it is corn syrup, sweet bran, sweet feed for cattle in Texas. They take it out on the trains from Eddyville all the way to the Texas Panhandle on big unit trains. And I think they have some other products that go out by rail, as well as Ajinomoto. Those aren't the only 2. There are a few other industries down there in Eddyville that are served by BNSF as well as Union Pacific. Now, the UP line goes north from Eddyville to Marshalltown, and it hooks up with their main line, their east-west, the Overland Route main line in Marshalltown. Now, in Oskaloosa, which the Union Pacific line is called the Oskaloosa subdivision, Oskaloosa has a surprising amount of online railroad business for its size. There is, now I'm trying to think, there is a lumber yard, there is a grain elevator, and there might be a few other things in Oskaloosa that are served by the train. So pretty amazing that a town which is probably about half the size of Ottumwa has just about as much railroad industry activity that this town does. And it's just served by essentially 1 train 6 days a week, 1 southbound and 1 northbound. Now that line, the Oskaloosa subdivision, is a great line to rail fan. The crew, at least they used to, I think they still do, they go on duty at noon in Marshalltown, and they roll down the line to Eddyville, and then they turn around and go back in 1 day. And last year, I got many successful chases of trains going down the Oskaloosa subdivision. That was mainly due to a patched Southern Pacific locomotive leading the trains on the local. This locomotive is Union Pacific 1066. It's an old GP60. And it was on the train, the local, leading the local for probably like a month. And then it got taken off for a few weeks, and then it got put back on. And it was so probably over the course of, I thought I heard crossing bells. Yeah, I think I do. So our next train's coming. So over the course of a couple of months, I got several pictures of that engine leading trains on the Oskaloosa subdivision. Now, curious enough, that engine has made it back to the Oskaloosa subdivision on the locals. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it's back. So I might try and get up there sometime and see it again. At any rate, our next train's coming, folks. This is the westbound Galesburg to Des Moines mixed freight manifest train. We'll see what it has on it. Looks like an SD70 ACE leader. We'll see what else is on it. Or excuse me, it's a GEVO leader, General Electric engine. There we have it. Now that train is usually pretty short compared to most trains that you would see on this line. That is the westbound mixed freight. It's one of only two that you would regularly see on this line. This one runs from Galesburg to Des Moines. And that is the only regularly scheduled BNSF freight train that serves Des Moines. This train and its counterpart that runs from Des Moines to Galesburg going east. Now, in years past, that train actually went to West Quincy, Missouri. And it was called the eastbound train would be the WQM DMO, but several years back it was changed to Galesburg. And I think the train was a little longer then because obviously you had more traffic on it coming from West Quincy. But now it's a Galesburg train. There's another mixed freight on this line called the Lyn-Gale or Gale-Lyn, depending on what direction it's coming from. And that is a train, a mixed freight that runs between Lincoln, Nebraska and Galesburg. And as you might expect, that train is much longer. In fact, it is a usually very long mixed freight train.
30-36, display for release, over. BNSF 8386 West, reporting clear on track 1, number 730-36, between mile post 226 and 226.
So that train's clearing up their warrant now.
21920. Is that correct, over? All correct, and we didn't see anywhere there in Ottumwa. All correct on the repeat, and did not see any motors anywhere in Ottumwa. I appreciate your help, sir, and I'll get you up there to start your work at Albia. How long are you thinking up there today, over? Got a couple. Some to set out in the West Pass, one to set out in the Appaloosa, both on the rear end, so maybe an hour at the most. Okay, sounds good, guys. Let me know whatever you need, and I'll make sure it happens. Get us up to you tomorrow.
All right, so that train clearly.
Okay, you're on the ground protection. Okay, good for 40, 830.
So that train is going to be crossing from Main 1 to 2 down at the control point at milepost 283, which is about 3 miles away. It's that new crossover that they put in for Amtrak to get to this platform at all times, since they're going to take out the middle platform, which I've talked about in several previous streams. And then they're going to cross back over to Main 1 at Maxon, which is just east of Albia, so they can do... Ooh. That's the local.
551, no engine there at Ottumwa.
Yep. They're confirming that they're...
That is correct, sir. Over.
All right. So anyways, that train we just saw is going to cross from Main 1, which is the track it's on now, to Main 2 at the new crossover at 283, which I think that's what the dispatcher said.
Need a van from Burlington to Galesburg, and I'll put it for a couple hours from now.
And then they're going to cross back over to Main 2 in Albia so they can do some set-out work, it sounds like. They have some cars they're going to put out in what they call the West Pass, which is a long siding, which used to be a passing siding back in the day when the line was only one track in Albia, I'm pretty sure. It's 2 tracks, but Main 2 kind of splits away and goes down underneath and kind of south of most of downtown Albia, whereas Main 1 goes just north of downtown, more at ground level. Now, I think Main 2 is a more gradual grade for the coal trains, and so the full coal trains going east take that track most of the time. But if you're wanting to serve any of the industries or any of the set outs and switches in Albia, you have to be on Main 1 because that's where they all are. The West Pass is right out by Maxon, I'm pretty sure. And then there's another siding called the East Pass that is in Albia. It's right on the edge of Albia. And then there is another switch that goes to the Iowa Southern Railroad, which is the former Appanoose County Community Railroad, which they were referring to. They called it the Appanoose. And that line goes down to Centerville. And it also serves Wabtec, which is the former Relco Locomotives facility in Albia. They do a lot of overhauling of locomotives and wreck rebuilds, and they do some manufacturing of new locomotives and cars there as well. So they get a lot of traffic off of the Iowa Southern in Albia just for that location, in addition to freight going south to Moravia and Centerville. There's also another, CP Casey's talking to train 260. There's another line, another BNSF line that branches north from Albia right past the Appanoose County switch. And that line is actually the BNSF Des Moines subdivision, and that is the line that the train we just saw will be taking north to Des Moines. That is the former Norfolk Southern line. And it was kind of jointly shared by the Norfolk Southern and it currently still is, I'm pretty sure. There are stretches that are still owned by Norfolk Southern and others that are owned by BNSF. Originally, that was an entire NS line, including a large portion of the Iowa Southern that went south of Albia down towards Moulton Junction, and it went further south into Missouri all the way to Moberly, Missouri. After, I think the last trains ran on that line in 1993, and the line was pulled up in 98, except for the portion from Des Moines south to Moulton Junction. That still exists under different owners, Iowa Southern and BNSF. Once Norfolk Southern closed the line, BNSF purchased portions of the line for their own use. And Norfolk Southern still owns and maintains a rail yard in Des Moines. And so all of their traffic comes in on the BNSF trains. Norfolk Southern used to run all of their trains directly up to Des Moines on their line from Moberly. Ambulance going over the bridge now. When they closed down the line, they switched all of their traffic that went on that line onto BNSF trains, well, at that time Burlington Northern trains, under a haulage agreement. So Norfolk Southern has haulage rights through here. So their freight runs on BNSF to Des Moines, and then Norfolk Southern does their own switching of their industries on the tracks that they own in Des Moines. So you might have seen a few NS freight cars on that train. I think there were a couple, and those are most likely cars that will be going to the Norfolk Southern Rail Yard in Des Moines.
Put it right here, cut it off here, whatever else. We're going to need more room anyway, so we got to shove down into something.
Now our next and probably final train of the night will be train 664. This is kind of about like what we had for action last time on our stream. Got 3 trains. I think we got a westbound coal train, or no, an eastbound coal train, and train 664, as well as Amtrak. Tonight, it's about the same. We got Amtrak and that westbound Des Moines freight, and eventually,
We need like 5 cars, so cut us off. We got to shove down into 7.
Yeah, that's chatter on the CPKC right now. The next train is going to be the eastbound local freight 664, and the lead locomotive is BNSF 551, which is an old Dash 840BW locomotive, which those, at one time, they used to be pretty common power for this train. And more lately, they've kind of gone the way of, smaller engines and sometimes road locomotives. But once in a while, you'll still see them, and it's really neat. There's some of my favorite locomotives to see through here because you don't see them very much. There weren't very many of them built. They were all built for Santa Fe back in the late 80s and early 90s. And they're 4-axle power, which is kind of unusual for wide cab freight locomotives. You don't see very many wide cab 4-axle locomotives. Most have 6 axles, 6 traction motors. And originally, those locomotives were built to haul fast, hotshot intermodal trains on Santa Fe's main line between Chicago and Los Angeles. And they did so for many years. Obviously, when newer engines came along and the merger with BNSF, they were still used on those trains, but as the newer power came online, especially with the advent of the Dash 9 locomotive, which pretty much took over most intermodal trains, not just on BNSF, but also the predecessor, Santa Fe. They had quite a few Dash 9s of themselves. The Dash 8 40BWs were kind of taken to secondary trains, and now the ones that BNSF still owns are used on typically local freights and, shorter freight trains, such as this one that we will be seeing momentarily. But they're neat engines. I mean, they're kind of a mix between a big locomotive and a small locomotive. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the Amtrak Dash 8 locomotives, the Dash 8 32BWHs. And these engines are actually very similar. In fact, the Amtrak Dash 8s were kind of designed off of the freight Dash 8s. At that time, in between the F40 and Genesis, when Amtrak needed some additional power quick, and GE built them 20 Dash 8 32BWHs. It's kind of a stopgap between the retirement of the F40s and the arrival of the P40s, the first round of Genesis locomotives back in the 90s. Now, interestingly, all of the Dash 8s, except for 2 on Amtrak, still exist, and they still operate regularly. In fact, a lot of them still run passenger trains over the main line, which is pretty amazing for 30-year-old passenger locomotives on Amtrak to still be used. Most of the time, they're used in yards, switching cars now, because obviously there are plenty of Genesis engines, and of course the new Chargers to take care of the long distance and short distance trains. But once in a while, you'll still see them pinch hit when they need to. In fact, there's been a lot of them that have been cycling on the Hiawatha trains and the new Borealis train that runs to St. Paul. You'll still see some of them running around in California. And there were 2 that reverted back to the state of California for ownership, and they renumbered them to Amtrak California 2051 and 2052. I don't think they run those anymore. As California is very strict on a lot of their emission standards, and obviously those Dash 8s aren't very, they're not as good as far as, emission control. So when the new Chargers came online, I'm pretty sure that they sidelined those Dash 8s. But I don't know what they're switching with now in the yards. Like, I think those 2 engines were based out of Oakland, last I knew. And as far as I know, they still exist, but I do not think they're being used anymore. Now, in my California travels, I actually got to see one of them. This was years ago. About 12 years ago now. I actually got to see one of them pushing one of the state trains, either the Capitol Corridor or the San Joaquin. From my motel room, I got some video of it pushing a train from my hotel room in Emeryville overlooking the station. And later on, I saw it heading back. When we were on the Zephyr heading back to Iowa, I saw it coming back with another train later on, several hours later. That's the only time I've seen one of the California Dash 8s in operation. Again, as far as I know, they still exist, but they're not really being used now. But yes, the next train will have a BNSF or a former Santa Fe. I don't know if 511 has been one of the ones that have been repainted or not. They were all originally Santa Fe, and obviously with the merger, they became BNSF. I don't think BNSF has all of the original Dash 840 BWs anymore. I think some of them were sold. I think some of them were actually long-term leased from GE, and then when the lease came up, BNSF chose to not renew the lease. And they went back to GE, and I think they were subsequently sold off to short line railroads. I feel like there's a couple of them on a short line in Oklahoma. I don't know if it's the AOK Railroad or one of those down there. I think they had a couple. Now, a very famous Dash 8 of recent times, and I can't think of the number off the top of my head, so if you guys know it, go ahead and chime in. The Railroading Heritage of Midwest America acquired a Dash 8 locomotive. Yeah, Iowa Trains is already right on it. 537. I'm pretty sure that's the engine that they got. BNSF donated that locomotive. We'll hold up here so the CBKC dispatcher can talk. So anyways, BNSF donated a Dash 840 BW to the Railroading Heritage of Midwest America in Silvis. And they, very quickly, they repainted the engine. In fact, it was just released earlier this year, pretty sure.
Okay, copy that. Appreciate the heads up, Joe.
In full Santa Fe war bonnet paint. They restored the engine. They got it, BNSF Heritage 2, when BNSF donated it to them, and they repainted the engine in full-fledged, completely original Santa Fe war bonnet colors. And the engine kind of made its grand debut a couple months ago at the open house that they did up in Silvis, which I wasn't able to make it this year. I did go to the one last year that had CP 2816 at it, which wasn't near as big of a deal as the one this year, but I wasn't able to go to that one. But that was the grand debut of that war bonnet locomotive that Railroading Heritage got. And it is one of those engines, the Dash 840 BWs. So I think it's really cool that one of those engines has been fully restored and in operation in a museum setting. So whenever these engines fall out of favor on the main line, we'll still be able to see them on short lines and at Silvis. And wouldn't it be neat to see that engine leading an excursion train sometime, along with maybe the Centennial 69, UP 6936? That would be really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff going on at Silvis. Of course, they're also in the process of donating, or excuse me, they're in the process of restoring two steam locomotives, Union Pacific 3985, the Challenger, and Union Pacific 5511, the big 210-2 steam locomotive. Now, I'm really excited to see that engine run because it is a really big engine, and there's not anything else like it in operation in America now. I've seen the Challenger running years ago before UP sidelined it. I actually saw it a couple of times. Once going across Iowa, around the Boone area, Ogden and Boone. And then I saw it a couple of years later running through Missouri, Jefferson City and California and Sedalia area. I saw it on that line. So I'm glad I got to see it when it was in excursion service on the Union Pacific. I've only seen 844 once. Once on video, I guess. I've seen it a couple of times, but I've only gotten it on video on one occasion. And it also still operates, but of course, Union Pacific right now is focusing more on running their big boy locomotive, number 4014. But 844 still operates, and will probably operate again in the coming years. Now, UP is going to run the big boy on a kind of a shortened excursion run from, I think it's from Cheyenne to, is it Denver maybe? It's going to be a very short run from Wyoming to Colorado and back. And I don't think there's going to be any like public stops or anything like that. It's just going to be a very quick excursion. I don't remember what it's for, but that's the only run that 4014 is going to be doing this year. But UP kind of teased that they're going to be planning something huge next year, which is the 250th anniversary of the United States. So pretty big deal. So it would not surprise me if 4014 and 844 come out next year. Of course, don't quote me on that, but it would not surprise me if both engines went on, you know, a huge nationwide tour of America, or at least on the UP system, for America's 250th birthday next year. It would not surprise me if a lot of railroads would be planning special things. Of course, the last time really a big hoopla went on for celebrating an American birthday was the bicentennial in 1976, which of course was the 200th birthday of the United States. And there were so many locomotives of different railroads painted up in bicentennial paint schemes. So I kind of hope that railroads do the same thing next year and paint up a bunch of engines in special, you know, America-themed liveries like they did in 76. Obviously, that was way before my time, so I never got to see any of those engines. So it'll be neat to see if anybody does that next year for the 250th. Hopefully they do. As A-Train just commented, there were also a lot more railroads back then too, and there were. Now there is one bicentennial locomotive. It's out in California. It's a Santa Fe locomotive that has been restored in the old bicentennial paint scheme, and it was recently, it just recently made its arrival at the museum. Well, it was formerly called the Orange Empire Museum in Paris, California. It and the Coaster F40 locomotive 2105 were brought in at the same time to that museum. Now, if any of you think that that coaster locomotive sounds familiar, well, that's the, is it 2105? I'm pretty sure. That is also the kind of the handle of a very famous train YouTuber, Mike Armstrong. His YouTube channel is actually named Coaster 2105, and due to his popularity and some of the efforts that he did, that engine was donated by Coaster and now is at the Railroad Museum in Paris, California. So that's pretty cool. All right, here comes our train. We can see it, the headlight poking out from around the sign down there. This is BNSF train 664, the the eastbound local train running from Eddyville to Galesburg, with the -8 40BW that we've been talking about for a long time, leading the train. Train 664, the eastbound BNSF local between Eddyville, Iowa and Galesburg, Illinois, just passed through the station. Leading the train was Dash 840BW, and the second unit, which you don't see those enough, but it's always really cool to see them, was a B unit, a GP60B to be precise. And there's only a few of those locomotives that are still in operation on BNSF right now. The rest are all in storage. That was another locomotive of Santa Fe heritage. Now I'm guessing that train is crossing over from main 1 to 2 to allow another train by, which apparently is passing agency now. And I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for tonight, though. But yes, as Hawkeye Sirens, Elevators, Trains, and More just commented, the B unit, that is pretty cool because you don't see those engines very much. As I just said, that is a product of the Santa Fe. Santa Fe was the only railroad, just like the Dash 840BWs. They were the only railroad that had GP60Bs. I'm pretty sure there were like 20 or 25 of them made. And they were used, just like the Dash 8s, they were used to supplement the power on hotshot intermodal trains. But then over the years, they got downgraded to just local and, you know, shorter manifest train service and things like that. Yeah, A-Train just commented and said there's no more than 5 active GP60Bs. But I'm pretty sure originally there were probably like 15 or 20 of them made. And they were also made to supplement the cabbed GP60M locomotives, which were actually older engines than the Dash 8s, I'm pretty sure. They were made in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. And they were actually, the GP60Ms were actually the first, I'm pretty sure, they were the first Santa Fe engines to feature what became known as the Superfleet paint scheme, which was the reintroduction of the Santa Fe war bonnet. Prior to that, the Santa Fe freight locomotives were all what they call the blue bonnet, which is the yellow nose and the dark blue sides. And that was the standard freight paint scheme for a couple decades, I feel like. And the war bonnet paint was just used on passenger locomotives. And then obviously after Amtrak took over, the war bonnet paint scheme kind of faded away. And it was just, you know, the blue and yellow Santa Fe blue bonnet engines. With the GP60M order, the war bonnet came back. And it was called Superfleet. It was kind of a combination of the war bonnet paint scheme and the big block Santa Fe letters on the side of the engine that was used on the blue bonnet engines. And that became probably the most, I like to say that was probably the most famous incarnation of the Santa Fe war bonnet paint scheme, was the Superfleet variation. And it was used on, obviously, the GP60Ms and Bs, also the Dash 840BWs, and the Dash 9s. There were quite a few of those war bonnet engines prior to the BNSF merger. And actually after the merger, BNSF still painted some of their first order of Dash 9s in war bonnet paint, but with BNSF letters. And those became the BNSF war bonnets that you still see from time to time. They're also the ones that some people refer to as fake bonnets. Fake being it looks like a Santa Fe war bonnet, but it's actually BNSF. It was never actually a Santa Fe engine, which I think I prefer to refer to them as BNSF war bonnets. I think fake bonnet's kind of I don't know. I just think that's kind of a disrespectful kind of moniker, if you will. It's still a war bonnet. It's just not a Santa Fe war bonnet, it's a BNSF. But, you know, that's just me. The fake bonnet name is pretty widespread now, and that's how you differentiate it from a Santa Fe engine and BNSF. I just say BNSF war bonnet. But anyways, I digress. So that's about it for tonight, folks. We got 3 trains. There's quite a bit of action tonight. We've gone on quite a while, so I don't want to go on much further. But for tonight, But I will be providing some updates in the future because, as I mentioned in the beginning of the program, and the reason why I didn't do a live stream for the past 2 weeks, or 3 weeks actually, it's been 3 weeks since I did one, didn't do one last weekend or the weekend before, was because I've been very busy. My wife and I actually purchased our first house. And there'll be a lot of interesting and fun train developments in that house in the near future. So I'll probably give you guys an update on that when the time comes. Just to give you guys a brief summary, it is a 4-bedroom house, and one of those bedrooms is going to be a office slash train room slash drafting table. I mean, everything creative of mine will be in one room, and I'll be building a pretty significant O-scale model train layout in the room as well. So I'll be looking forward to sharing that with you guys in the future. And I'm going to be probably posting a video of, the progress of that layout as I go along. So just be on the lookout for that in the future. It's very exciting, and it's really cool. So now with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for tonight. Don't think I was able to respond to a lot of you guys' questions and comments tonight, but we're running kind of long tonight, so I want to go ahead and wrap things up before it gets too late. But thank you guys for joining in tonight. I was talking in the earlier part of the stream that I think my record was like 40 people at one time. I think at one point we got up to like 45 or 46 viewers, so that was pretty cool. It's been pretty consistent around 30 viewers for the better portion of this stream tonight. So that's great viewership, especially considering I haven't done one of these in a few weeks. So hopefully we're going to be getting back into the routine of doing one every weekend like I have been. Probably on Saturdays like this. Seems to work out pretty well for now. So we'll be looking for all you guys next week. And I will be giving you guys some updates on my train room progress and other things. And future video projects. I have a lot of exciting things in the works that I'm going to try and incorporate into my normal video uploads for this year. Obviously, my next big video I'm working on is the California Zephyr video documentary. It's going to take quite a while to do, but hoping to get working on that a little bit before Old Threshers this year, which that'll probably be the next video after that. Old Threshers, believe it or not, is only a couple of months away. It just blows my mind. No, Dakota, I have not seen Patrick the Groundhog, unfortunately. I've been looking for him. I haven't seen any animal activity besides birds tonight. So, but I'm sure he's still around. Probably out nibbling on something somewhere. But no, this is also the actual month 20th anniversary of my video escapades, Bobby Harvey Video Productions. This is the 20th anniversary month to the month that I've been producing videos under the Bobby Harvey Video Productions name. Obviously, I haven't been on YouTube that long. I didn't get on YouTube until 2008, but I've been making videos as a whole for 20 years this month. So I'm probably going to make some sort of celebratory video, maybe kind of a story video about how I got started and all the different things I've seen and the videos I've made, things like that. I'm also thinking of maybe branching out and doing some travel videos, like maybe like kind of vlogging videos of some of our travels this year. Might deviate significantly from trains, might be more travel related and things like that. So I've always wanted to kind of branch off and do some kind of more vlogish kind of videos because I really like watching those, especially, travel videos. And, I've really watched a lot of YouTubers that go and explore like abandoned places and their vlogs of things like that, which those are very interesting. So I want to do that too. So, well, not necessarily explore abandoned places, but do vlogging videos. So I might do those this year too. So be on the lookout for that as well. So it's a big year for me, Bobby Harvey Video Productions, and all that. So be on the lookout for a bunch of new videos coming this year. Now, to kind of play us out for the night, that train, that coal train or freight train that was coming in agency has now made it to town. So we're going to wrap up the night with a train, our 4th train of the night, another westbound BNSF freight. Well, that was an interesting locomotive, 5738. That engine was kind of interesting. It's a Heritage 2 front and back, but it looked like it had Heritage 3 sides. I wonder if that's one of those that they refer to as the Frankenstein engine or something like that, or it's it's like 2 paint schemes. Pretty cool. All right, folks, with that, we have wrapped up things for the night. I think I've wrapped things up pretty well before that train came through. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for this evening, and we will hopefully see you all next week. I will let you guys know on my YouTube channel and Facebook, and we'll see you guys then. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching tonight, and we hope you all have a good night, and we will see you next week. So long, everyone.